Hello everyone, you're very welcome. It is possible to turn bad carbs into good carbs. Let's see how. A carburetor is a device for blending fuel and air in the correct ratio for internal combustion. It also allows us to control engine speed via the throttle. This one has been delivering as much fuel to the outside of the engine as the inside, and so needs attention. This being 12037 has two external adjustments, a pilot screw for air-fuel mixture adjustment and an idle screw for setting engine idle speed. I like to use 1/4-inch drive tools when working with delicate components like carburetors. Smaller tools restrict torque and reduce the chances of damage from over-tightening. It's a philosophy not shared by everyone, as this bolt has been bent from excessive force. Not good for mechanical health. The float bowl was previously fitted with this gasket. This is clearly homemade. The manufacturer never specified a gasket to be fitted to the float bowl. This is unusual, but we have seen examples on this channel of German engineering of this era being so well machined that a gasket is not required between two surfaces. Ironically, this addition may have been the cause of a leak. The float is tested by submerging in water. If it floats, it's a float. The throttle slide has some damage on the left side. It's been crushed by the idle screw being wound into it. This is why we always open the throttle a little when adjusting idle speed. Doing so moves the slide upwards inside the carburetor and out of harm's way. I'll try and find a replacement for this if I can. Not doing so might make final adjustment less effective. It's one of the last components to be fitted, so there's no rush to do so just yet. Time for a bath. Small springs and jets can be cleaned using the perforated bottom off a beer can, a lemonade can. Jesus, I nearly gave that one away. The ultrasonic cleaner really gets into the hard to reach parts of the carburetor. That sound would drive you into the kitchen though. Some people say that only a weirdo polishes a carburetor. I say only a weirdo polishes the back of a carburetor. Anyway, there's nothing to see at the back of the carburetor, so we won't look there. I've blown through all components with compressed air. They're bone dry and nice and clean. My pal Stuart in Eagle Electroplating replated the remaining carburetor components. He's done a lovely job as usual, allowing us to preserve the originality of this device for many decades to come. We'll see the rest of this stuff later in the Prima D build, but for now, we have a carburetor to assemble. The two red sealing rings are strictly the only consumable items needed to rebuild this carburetor, making this a very cheap fix. Fitting these will really help prevent leaks. With any long project, maintaining motivation can sometimes be challenging. Some bench work like this is always a good idea. It's satisfying and the instant gratification is good for morale. I'm always fascinated by technology such as the Carburettor. Designed in the 1880s, elegantly simple and with very few moving parts, reliable and still widely used today. I use a 17mm spanner to tighten this. The pointy end of this float engages the float valve. The flat end sits in a cup in the bottom of the float bowl. We need to make sure both ends are where they're supposed to be before closing. This is one of those soft, vague fuel hose clips that I never use, but in this case they are the perfect size and pliability to retain the float tickler. I've used the pliers to bend this clip neatly into a little pigtail. The idle screw can go in next. This is just a general fitting. We'll adjust it properly later with the engine running. Same for the pilot screw. For this one, however, as a good starting point, I'm going to carefully wind this all the way in until it just gently seats. Then screw it back out 2.5 turns. That's 1, 2, 2.5. On the inside we can see a little pin. This engages in the slot running up the outside of the throttle slide, so it can only be fitted one way. and we're finished. For the final adjustments, I've managed to find a full set of really great quality cables. These will allow us to tune this carburetor properly when the time comes. More of that later in the series. But for now, our being is just as it left the factory, albeit a little more bling. Ugh. Time to take a look at what comes out the other end of the engine, the exhaust pipe. I keep an old, worn motorcycle chain for decarbonising exhaust systems. This is a filthy job, so I like to wear my dirty blue overalls for this, as you can see. I'll clean up the exterior with a wire wheel, and after a weld here and there, it's ready for a lick of high temperature paint. This exhaust tip looks absolutely bashed, just like you're going to bash the subscribe button now, thanks. This look will ruin the high quality finish I hope to achieve with this Prima D, so let's see what we can do here. This is a tube of stainless steel that is millimeter perfect. Oh, that's nasty. Continuing the metalwork theme, we saw previously how unsound the bodywork was and how this scooter was literally glued together. Some of the sheet metal is quite thin and requires great skill to weld without warping. I got my old pal Tony to do this. Tony can write on tinfoil with a biro. He's done a lovely job. It's fair to say our Prima will still be held together by glue, but this time the glue is steel. The final thing to look at for now is this signature Prima D design element, the front mudguard trim. This is a distinct characteristic of this model and needs to look great for a high quality finish. When I saw this had been previously painted, I strongly suspected it was to cover filler used to hide decades of damage. What I wasn't expecting to reveal was that this component is made from aluminium. This is consistent with the scooter's aeronautical DNA, but it's just not an ideal material to use as a bumper. I discovered NSU also manufactured some of these trims from steel, which is far more robust. I don't know during what year or production run this change occurred, but I was lucky enough to find one, and with a bit of straightening, I sent it off to be chromed with the rest of the soon-to-be sparkly bits. And it came back looking spectacular. This is one of those eye-catching elements of the Prima D design and needs to be right for a slick overall finish, so I'm really happy with how this turned out. It's an improvement on the aluminium version while still an original NSU Prima part, so I'll definitely fit this one instead. The rest of this treasure trove we'll see later in the series. That's it for now. What's next on the list for our NSU Prima? Find out soon. Until then, slán go fóill.